to Reading with Miss B, with your host, me, Miss B. Today we will be showcasing a book called Out of the Dust by Karen Hesse. I understand you guys have gotten the background info on this, but we will be reading pages 1 through 51. You guys have those newfangled technology Chromebooks that you'll be using to read this. I unfortunately have no idea how to use technology, so I will be using a book. Winter 1934. Beginning August 1920. As summer wheat came ripe, so did I. Born at home on the kitchen floor, Ma crouched, barefoot, bare-bottomed, over the swept boards, because that's where Daddy said it'd be best. I came too fast for the doctor, bawling as soon as Daddy wiped his hand around the inside of my mouth. To hear Ma tell it, I hollered myself red the next day I was born. Red's the color I've stayed ever since. Daddy named me Billy Joe. He wanted a boy. Instead, he got a long-legged girl with a wide mouth and cheekbones like bicycle handles. He got a red-headed, freckle-faced, narrow-hipped girl with a fondness for apples and a hunger for playing fierce piano. From the earliest I can remember, I've been restless in this little panhandle shack we call home, always getting in Ma's way with my pointy elbows, my fidgety legs. By the summer I turned 9, Daddy had given up about having a boy. He tried making me do. I look just like him. I can handle myself most everywhere he puts me, even on the tractor, though I don't like that much. Ma tried having other babies. It never seemed to go right, except with me. But this morning, Ma let on how she's expecting again. Other than the 3 of us, there's not much family to speak of. Daddy, the only boy Kelby left, since Grandpa died from a cancer that ate up the most of his skin, and Aunt Ellis, almost 14 years older than Daddy, and living in Lubbock, way south of here, and a whole world apart to hear Daddy tell it. And Ma, with only great Uncle Floyd as ancient Indian bones and mean as a rattler, rotting away in the room down in Dallas. I'll be nearly 14, just like Aunt Ellis was when Daddy was born by the time this baby comes. Wonder if Daddy will get this boy this time. January 1934. Rabbit battles. Mr. Noble and Mr. Romney have a bet going as to who can kill the most rabbits. It all started as the rabbit drive last Monday over to Sturgis, when Mr. Noble got himself worked up about the damage done to his crop by jacks. Mr. Romney swore he had made more rabbit trouble than anyone in Cimarron County. They pledged revenge on the rabbit population, wagering who could kill more. They ought to just shut up. Betting on how many rabbits they can kill, honestly, grown men clubbing bunnies to death makes me sick to my stomach. I know rabbits eat what they shouldn't, especially this time of year when they could hop halfway to Liberal and still not find food. But Miss Freeland says if we keep plowing under the stuff they ought to be eating, what are they supposed to do? Mr. Noble and Mr. Romney came home from Sturgis Monday with 20 rabbits apiece. A tie. It should have stopped there, but Mr. Romney said he wasn't satisfied. He said, Noble cheated. He brought in rabbits somebody else killed. And so the contest goes on. Those men, they used to be best friends. Now they can't be civil with each other. They scowl as they pass on the street. I'm scowling too, but scowling won't bring back the rabbits. They're all skinned and cooked and eaten by now. At least they didn't end up in Romney and Noble's cook pots. They went to families that needed the meat. January 1934. Losing Livy. Livy Killen moved away. I didn't want her to go. We'd been friends since first grade. The farewell party was Thursday night at the Old Rock Schoolhouse. Livy had something to tease each of us about, like Ray sleeping through reading class, and Hillary, who on speed writing tests put an even ton of children instead of an even 10. Livy said goodbye to each of us separately. She gave me a picture that she made of me sitting in front of the piano, wearing my straw hat and apple halfway through my mouth. I handed Livy the memory book we'd all filled with our different slants. I couldn't get the muscles in my throat relaxed enough to tell her how much I'd miss her. Livy helped clean up her own party, wiping spilled lemonade, gathering sandwich crusts, sweeping cookie crumbs from the floor while the rest of us went home to study for semester reviews. Now Libby's gone west, out of the dust, on her way to California, where the wind takes a rest sometimes, and I'm wondering what kind of friend I am, wanting my feet on the road to another place instead of Libby's. January 1934. Me and Mad Dog. Arlie Wanderdale, who teaches music once a week at our school, though Mom says he's no teacher at all, just a local song plugger. Arlie Wanderdale asked if I'd like to play a piano solo at the Palace Theater on Wednesday night. I grinned, pleased to be asked, and said that'd be all right. I didn't know if Mom would let me. She's an old mule on the subject of my schooling. She says, you stay home on weeknights, Billy Joe. And mostly that's what I do. But Arlie Wanderdale said, the management asked me to bring them talent, Billy Joe, and I thought of you. Even before Mad Dog Craddock, I wonder, you and Mad Dog, Arlie Wanderdale said. Darn that blue-eyed boy with his fine face and his smooth voice, twice as good as a plowboy, has any right to be. I suspected Mad Dog had come first to Arlie Wanderdale's mind, but I didn't get too riled. Not so riled I couldn't say yes. January 1934. Permission to play. Sometimes, when Ma's busy in the kitchen, or scrubbing, or doing wash, I can ask her something in such a way I annoy her, just enough to get an answer. But not so much I get a no. That's a way I've found of gaining what I want, by catching Ma off guard. Especially when I'm after permission to play piano. Right out asking her is no good. She always gets testy about me playing, even though she's the one who truly taught me. Anyway, the time I caught her in the slow string of biscuits, her mind on other things, maybe the baby growing inside her, I don't know. But anyhow, she was distracted enough, and I was determined enough. This time, I got just what I wanted. Permission to play at the Palace. January 1934. On stage. When I point my fingers at the keys, the music springs straight out of me. Right hand, playing notes sharp as tongues, telling stories while the smooth, buttery rhythms back me up on the left. Folks sway in the palace aisles, grinning and stomping and out of breath, and the rest, eyes shining, fingers snapping, feet tapping. It's the best I've ever felt. Playing hot piano, sizzling with Mad Dog, swinging with the Black Mesa Boys, or on my own, crazy. Pestering the keys, that is heaven. How supremely heaven playing piano can be. January 1934. Birthday for FDR. I played so well on Wednesday night, Arlie put his arm across my shoulder and asked me to come perform at the President's birthday ball. Ma can't say no to this one. It's for President Roosevelt. Not that Mr. Roosevelt will actually be there, but the money collected at the ball, along with the balls all over the country, will go, in the President's name, to the Warm Springs Foundation, where Mr. Roosevelt stayed once when he was sick. Someday, I plan to play for President Franklin Delano Roosevelt myself. Maybe I'll go all the way to the White House in Washington, D.C. In the meantime, it's pretty nice. Arlie asking me to play twice for Joyce City. January 1934. Not too much to ask. We haven't had a good crop in 3 years, not since the bounty of '31. And we're all whittled down to the bone these days, even Ma with her new round belly. But still, when the committee came asking, Ma donated 3 jars of applesauce and some cured pork and a feed sack nightie she'd sewn for our coming baby. February 1934. Mr. Hardley's money handling. It was Daddy's birthday, and Ma decided to bake him a cake. There wasn't money enough for anything like a real present. Ma sent me to fetch the extras with 50 cents she'd been hiding away. Don't go to Joyce City, Billy, she said. You can get what we need down at Hardley's store. I slipped the coins into my sweater pocket, the pocket without a hole, thinking about how many sheets of new music 50 cents would buy. Mr. Hardley glared when the Wonder Bread door banged shut behind me. He squinted as I creaked across the wooden floor. Mr. Hardley was in the habit of charging too much for his stale food, and he made bad change when he thought he could get away with it. I squinted back at him as I gave Ma's order. Mr. Hardley's been worse than normal, since his attic filled with dust and collapsed under the weight. He hired folks for the repairs and argued every nail and every little minute. The whole place took shoveling for days before he could open again, and some stock was so bad it had to be thrown away. The stove clanked in the corner as Mr. Hardley filled Ma's order. I could smell apples, ground coffee, and peppermint. I sorted through the patterns on the feed bag, sneezed dust, blew my nose. When Mr. Hardley finished sacking my things, I paid the bill, and tucking the list in my pocket along with the change, hurried home, so Ma could bake the cake before Dad came in. But Ma emptied the sack, setting each packet out on the oilcloth. She counted her change, and I remembered with a sinking feeling that I hadn't kept an eye on Mr. Hardley's money handling, and Mr. Hardley had cheated again, only this time he cheated himself, giving us an extra 4 cents. So while Mom mixed a cake, I walked back to Mr. Hardley's store, back through the dust, back through the Wonder Bread door, and thinking about the secondhand music in a moldy box at the shop in Joy City, music I could have for 2 sheets a cent. I placed Mr. Hardley's overpayment on the counter and turned to head back home. Mr. Hardley cleared his throat, and I wondered for a moment if he'd call me back to offer a piece of peppermint or he'd pick me out an apple from the crate, but he didn't. And that's okay. Ma would have thrown a fit if I'd taken a gift from him. February 1934. 50 miles south of home. In Amarillo, wind blew plate glass windows in, tore electric signs down, reaped wheat straight out of the ground. February 1934. Rules of dining. Ma had rules for setting the table. I placed plates upside down, glasses bottom side up, and napkins folded over, forks, knives, and spoons. When dinner is ready, we sit down together and Ma says, "Now." We shake out our napkins, spread them on our laps, flip over our glasses and plates, exposing neat circles, round comments on what life would be without dust. Daddy says, "The potatoes are peppered plenty tonight, Polly. Chocolate milk for dinner, ain't we in clover?" When really all our pepper and chocolate, it's nothing but dust. I heard word from Libby Killen. The Killens can't find work, can't get food. Libby's brother Reuben, 15 last summer, took off, thinking of making it on his own. I hope he's okay. With a baby growing inside Ma, it scares me thinking, what would we be without somewhere to live, without some work to do, without something to eat? At least we got milk, even if we have to chew it. February 1934. I am so sorry I got scared there. Somebody just came in my door through the garage and it made a big racket, so just excuse that. Back to the book. Breaking drought. After 70 days of wind and sun, of wind and clouds, of wind and sand, after 70 days of wind and dust, a little rain came. February 1934. Dazzle. In the kitchen, she is my mom. In the barn and the field, she is my daddy's wife. But in the parlor, Ma is something different. She isn't much to look at, so long and skinny, her teeth poor, her dark hair always needing a wash. But by the time I was 4, I remember being dazzled whenever she played piano. Daddy brought it, an old Kramer, his wedding gift to her. She came to his house and found gaps in the walls, a rusty bed, no running water, and that piano gleaming in the corner. Daddy gets soft eyes standing behind her while she plays. I want someone to look that way at me. On my 5th birthday, Ma sat me down beside her and started me to read music, started me to plan. I'm not half so good as Ma. She can pull Daddy into the parlor even after the last milking when he's so beat he barely knows his own name. All he wants is a mattress under his bones. You've got to be something to get his notice that time of day, but Ma can. I'm not half so good with my crazy playing as she is with her fine tunes and her fancy fingerwork, but I'm good enough for Arlie, I guess. March 1934. Debts. Daddy is thinking of taking a loan for Mr. Roosevelt and his men to get some new wheat planted where the winter crop has splintered out and died. Mr. Roosevelt promises Daddy won't have to pay a dime till the crop comes in. Daddy says, I can turn the fields over again, start again, it's sure to rain soon. Wheat's sure to grow. Ma says, what if it doesn't? Daddy said, takes off his hat, roughs up his hair, puts the hat back on. Of course it'll rain, he says. Ma says, Bae, it hasn't rained enough to grow wheat in 3 years. Daddy looked like a fight brewing. He takes that red face out of his to the barn to keep from feuding with my pregnant mom. I asked Mom how, after all this time, Daddy still believes in rain. Well, it rains enough, Ma says, now and again to keep a person hoping. But even if it didn't, your daddy would have to believe. It's coming on winter, and he's a farmer. March 1934. Foul as maggoty stew. Arlie Wanderdale said the rehearsals for Sunny of Sunnyside shouldn't take me out of school more than twice a week. When I told Mom, she got angry about my missing school to play piano for some show. Me and Daddy were trying best to please Mom for fear of what it might do the baby if we don't. I don't know why she's so against my playing. She says that school is important, but I do all right in school. I know she doesn't like the kind of music I play, but sometimes I think she's just plain jealous when I'm at the piano and she's not. Maybe she's a little afraid of me going somewhere with the music she can't follow, or with the music taking me so far away one day I'll never come home. Whatever the reason, she said I couldn't do it. Arlie had to get somebody else to take my place. I do as I said, as she says. I go to school, and in the afternoons I come home, run through my chores, do my reading and my math work at the kitchen table, and all the while I glare at Ma's back with a scowl foul as maggoty stew. March 1934. State test. When I get home, I told Ma our school scored higher than the whole state on achievement tests, and I scored top of 8th grade. Ma nodded. I know you could. That's all she said. She was proud, I could tell, but she didn't coo like Mad Dog's mom or go on like Miss Killing used to do. Daddy said, that's not your mom's way, but I wish it was. I wish she'd give me a little more to hold on to than I knew you could. Instead, she makes me feel like she's just taking me like I was, so much flannel dry on the line. March 1934. Fields of flashing light. I heard the wind rise and stumble from my bed, down the stairs, out the front door, into the yard, the night sky keep flashing, lightning danced down on its spindly legs. I sensed before I knew it was coming. I heard it, smelled it, tasted it. Dust. While Ma and Daddy slept, the dust came, tearing up fields where the winter wheat, set for harvest in June, stood helpless. I watched the plants surviving after so much drought and so much wind. I watched them fry or flatten or blow away like bits of cast-off rags. It wasn't until the dust turned toward the house like a fired locomotive, and I fled, barefoot and breathless, back inside. It wasn't until the dust hissed against the windows until it ratcheted the roof that Daddy woke. He ran into the storm, his overalls half hooked over his union suit. Daddy, I called, you can't stop dust. Ma told me to cover the beds, push the scatter rugs against the doors, dampen the rags around the windows, wiping dust of everything. She made coffee and biscuits, waiting for Daddy to come in. Sometime after 4, rubbing low on her back, Ma sank down into a chair at the kitchen table and covered her face. Daddy didn't come back for hours, not until the temperature dropped so low it brought snow. Ma and I sighed, grateful, staring at the dirty flakes, but our relief didn't last. The wind snatched that snow right off the field, leaving behind a sea of dust, waves and waves and waves of dust rippling across our yard. Daddy came in. He sat across from Ma and blew his nose. Mud streamed out. He coughed and spit out the mud. If he had cried, his tears would have been mud too. But he didn't cry, and neither did Mom. March 1934. Now we're in spring of 1934. So, we just finished winter. So we just finished the section of winter 1934. Since this is a free verse poem, it does go pretty quick. And now we're in spring of 1934. You guys have your newfangled technology. I have these books for us to read from. So let's begin. Spring 1934. Tested by dust. While we sat taking our 6-week test, the wind rose and the sand blew right through the cracks in the schoolhouse wall, right through the gaps around the window glass. And by the time the tests were done, each and every one of us was coughing pretty good, and we all needed a bath. I hope we get bonus points for testing in a dust storm. April 1934. Banks. Ma says everything we lost when the banks closed, because they didn't have enough cash to go around, all the money that's ours is coming back to us in full. Good. Now we can have money for a doctor when the baby comes. April 1934. Beet wheat. County Agent Dewey has some pretty bad news. 1/4 of the wheat is lost, blown away or withered up. What remains is little more than a wisp of what it should be. And every day we have no rain, more wheat dies. County Agent Dewey says soon there won't be enough wheat for seed to plant next fall. The piano is some comfort in this. I go to it and I forget the dust for hours, testing my long fingers on wild rhythms. But Ma slams around the kitchen when I play, and after a while she sends me to the store. Joe de la Flor doesn't see me pass by. He rides his fences, dazed by dust. I wince at the sight of his rib-thin cattle, but he's not even seeing them. I look at Joe and know our future is drying up and blown away with the dust. April 1934. Give up on wheat. Ma says, try putting in a pond, Bayard. We can fill it on the windmill. We got a good well. Daddy grumbles, the water will seep back in the ground as fast as I can pump it, Paul. We'll dry up our well and then we'll have nothing. Plant some other things, Ma says. Try cotton, sorghum. If we plant the fields in different crops, maybe some will do better than wheat. Daddy says, no, it has to be wheat. I've grown it before, I'll grow it again. But Ma says, can't you see what's happening, Baker? The wheat's not meant to be here. Daddy says, what about those apple trees of yours, Paul? You think they are? Nothing needs more to drink than those two. But you wouldn't hear of leveling your apples, would you? Ma is bittering. I can see it in her mouth. A pond would work, she says, sounding crusty and stubborn. And Daddy says, look it, Paul. Who's the farmer, you or me? Ma says, who pays the bills? No one right now, Daddy says. Ma starts quaking, but she won't let Daddy see. Instead, she goes out to the kitchen, to the chickens, and her anger, simmering over like a pot in an empty kitchen, boils itself down doing chores. April 1934. What I don't know. My teacher, Miss Freeland, is singing at the shrine along with famous opera stars from all around the country in a play called Madame Butterfly. I've never heard of that play. Most everyone's heard of Madame Butterfly, Mad Dog says. How does that singing plowboy know something I don't? And how much more is there out there most everyone else has heard of except me? April 1934. Apple blossoms. Ma has been nursing these two trees for as long as I can remember. In spite of the dust, in spite of the drought, because of Ma's stubborn care, these trees are thick with blossoms, delicate and pinky white. My eyes can't get enough of the sight of them. I stand under the trees and let the petals fall into my hair. A blizzard of sweet-smelling flowers drop from the boughs of the two placed there in the front yard by Mom before I was born. That she and they might come forth fruit getting into our home together. May 1934. World War. Daddy was just 17 when he fought in the Great War off in France. There's not much he's willing to say about those days except about the poppies. He remembers the poppies, red on the graves of the dead. Daddy says the war tore France up, worse than a tornado, worse than a dust storm, but no matter, the wild poppies bloomed in the trail of the fighting, brightening the French countryside. I wish I could see the poppies growing out of this dust. May 1934. Apples. Ma's apple blossoms have turned to hard green balls. To eat them now, so tart, would turn my mouth inside out, would make my stomach groan. But in just a couple months, after the baby is born, those apples will be ready, and we'll make pies and sauce and pudding and dumplings and cake and cobbler, and we'll just have plain apples to take to school, slice it with my pocket knife, and eat one of the juicy piece at a time until my mouth is clean and fresh, and my breath is nothing but apple. June 1934. Dust and rain. On Sunday, winds came, bringing a red dust like prairie fire, hot and peppery, searing the inside of my nose, the whites of my eyes, roaring dust, turning the day from sunlight to midnight. As the dust left, rain came. Rain that was no blessing. It came too hard, too fast, and washed the soil away, washed the wheat away with it. Now little remains of Daddy's hard work, and the only choice he has is to give up or start all over again. At the Strong Ranch, they don't get a single drop, so who fared better here? Ma looks out the window at her apple trees. Hard green balls have dropped to the ground, but there are enough left, enough for a small harvest if we lose no more. June 1934. Harvest. The combines have started moving across the fields, bringing in wheat, whatever has managed to grow. Mr. Tuttle delivered the first load to town, selling it for 73 cents a bushel. Not bad. Mr. Chaffin, Mr. Haverstick, and Mr. French, they delivered their harvest too, dropping at the Joyce City grain elevator. Daddy asked Mr. Haverstick how things looked, and Mr. Haverstick said he figures he took 8 bushels off a 20-bushel acre. If Daddy gets 5 bushels to his acre, it'll be a miracle. June 1934. On the road with Arlie. Here's the way I figure it. My place in the world is at the piano. I'm earning a little money playing thanks to Arlie Wanderdale. He and his Black Mesa boys have connections in the Keys, and Goodwell, and Texoma. And every little crowd is grateful to hear a rag or two played on the piano by a long-legged, red-headed girl, even when the piano has a few keys soured by dust. At first, Ma crossed her arms against her chest and stared me down, hard-jawed and sharp, said I couldn't go. But the money helped convince her, and the compliment from Arlie and his wife, Vera, that they'd surely bring my Ma along to come play too. If she wasn't so far gone with the baby coming, Ma said, okay, but only for the summer. And if she didn't hear me grab about how I was tired, or see me dragging my back end around, or have to call me twice upon a morning, or find my farm chores falling down, and if Arlie Weiss Barrows kept an eye on me. Arlie says my piano playing is good. I play a set of songs with the word baby in the title, just like My Baby Cares for Me, and Walking My Baby Back Home. I picked those songs on purpose for Mom, and the folks that come to hear Arlie's band, they like them just fine. Arlie pays in dimes. Ma's putting my earnings away I don't know where, saving it to send me to school in a few years. The money doesn't matter to me much. I play for nothing. When I'm with Arlie's boys, we forget the dust. We're flying down the road in Arlie's cars, singing, laying our voices on top of the beat Miller Rice plays on the back of Arlie's seat. And sometimes, Vera up front chirps crazy notes with no words, and the sounds she makes seem just about amazing. It's being a part of all that, being a part of Arlie's crowd I like so much, being on the road, being somewhere new and interesting. We have a fine time, and they let me play piano too. June 1934. Okay, so now we've gone through spring 1934 and winter 1934. Tune in next time to hear about summer 1934 and the adventures of Billy Joe in Out of the Dust by Karen Hesse. This has been Book Reading Time with Miss B and Oliver. Over and out.